So how many of you are sitting there wondering when your next strike of creative lightning is going to hit? Or perhaps you're waiting for the big eureka moment of an idea, whether it's an online business or the premise of a new book. Well, scratch that thought, because you're honestly not going to get anywhere just sitting and waiting for some magic of inspiration to come. That's what we call the inspiration paradox. And in this video, I'm going to explore what this is, and near the end of the video, give some tips on how you can break out of waiting for inspiration and start making moves today. But before I do that, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video as it helps the algorithm out, and hopefully by sharing this around, you can help to inspire others and unraveling their inspiration as well. Simply put, the inspiration paradox is the very contradictory nature of our creativity and desire to be inspired. Most people often believe that inspiration to do something creative or be in some type of flow is something that just naturally happens. But once we have it, that's when all hell breaks loose. Perhaps it's from all those movies or TV shows we've seen where we see that protagonist gets some aha moment that changes his or her life for the better. But to be honest, reality isn't like that. Creativity is not something that just strikes at random in bursts of spontaneity. Sure, it can happen like that, and when it does, it feels awe-inspiring. But if we were really to wait for every moment that does happen, we'd be sitting in the dark, never doing or making anything. The truth of the matter is, creativity ironically comes not from some magical cloud in the sky of eureka moments, but in the mundane, monotonous routine of consistency. And that's where the paradox lies, as waiting for inspiration to strike can actually lead to a lack of productivity or creativity at large. When we push ourselves to create, even when we aren't feeling so creative or motivated, we may push our minds to its limits, thus forcing some emergence of new ideas and breakthroughs. Many artists, writers, and creators in general have stated this very fact. You just have to keep creating, and it's in this process you learn to improve, optimize, and refine. As the famous author Stephen King once stated, if you want to be a writer, you must do two things above all others: read a lot and write a lot. There's no way around these two things that I'm aware of, no shortcut. He's even gone on record in this conversation with Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin about how it's all about just getting a fixed quota out there, no matter whether it's good or bad. The key point here is that the quality doesn't necessarily have to be great, and oftentimes it's not going to be, but it's the sheer habit of doing so that actually gets you there. It's getting words on paper and pushing your ideas out, and it's in this process new ideas form, old ideas change, and it's a constant moving process of, well, creating. And it's exactly in this process where creativity forms. Even if it comes starting your own YouTube channel, so many of us sit back and try to create this perfect YouTube video that will hopefully go viral. But the reality is, and as spoken by many successful YouTubers, you just need to create. There is no way in knowing, unless you've reached that point of success on the platform, which video is going to hit. And so you just need to experiment, do, and most of all, create. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I need to be in that creative mood. But this is a misconception that a lot of people have. Often, this reasoning itself is a form of procrastination. We're rationalizing to ourselves that we need some magical moment to get us there. I truly believe that much like happiness, motivation, and inspiration are not found, but made. Plus, when we wait for creative moments, what it ends up causing is delayed action. We set back acting on anything because we feel like there's a better, more aha moment to come. But as we've all heard time and time again, without action, we go nowhere in life. As the quote goes, the price of inaction is far greater than the cost of making a mistake. And then there's also settling for comfort. The more we put off doing something we need to be doing for the sake of some rationalization that the creative moment will come, the more we settle into this comforting place. But beautiful ideas, great work, and productivity in itself is not bred from comfort. Comfort kills creativity. And then there's also the lack of discipline. Echoing off the previous point for settling for comfort, when we wait for that right moment, we're essentially failing to be disciplined at pushing ourselves. Facing the reality of the grind, process of brainstorming and dwindling over thoughts is discomforting. And honestly, sometimes it really sucks. But doing it day in and day out consistently is what shapes character and discipline. And that is the journey. As Mike Tyson once stated, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. So, if inspiration isn't coming to you, here are a few tips you can keep in mind to get started regardless. For one, think about what's blocking you. First off, take off some time to reflect and think very carefully about what is exactly blocking you. Ask yourself intimate questions that actually get you wondering. Are you scared that you might fail? Do you not have confidence in your ability? Do you lack the initial knowledge to get started? You need to really sit down and be real with yourself. Let's say you're keen on starting a business or perhaps a YouTube channel. You sit down, but you're really not sure what to really create. Suddenly, this excitement and motivation you had a few days prior when you made the decision to start begins dwindling. Well, it's normal to feel that way. but what's important is what you do with that feeling. Instead of trying to distract yourself with social media or something else, try to write it all down and answer the intimate questions that pierce you. And once you figured out what is exactly blocking you, from actual physical roadblocks to mental emotional resistance, then you can move on to the next. Second point is to write down a specific plan. After you settle on your own internal or external roadblocks, write out the next steps you need to remove them or just get started. Just like how it is when setting goals, as I talk about in another video, make sure to be specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-based. Specificity is key to proactivity. The more digestible something is, the easier it is to take on. Thirdly, move your body. Let's say you've done all that but have moments where you're not feeling inspired. Well, make sure you get yourself up and move about. There are countless studies that suggest that walking improves creativity. This idea has been around since ancient times, with philosophers walking through the gardens to surmise some of mankind's greatest thoughts and ideas. And even modern entrepreneurs do this, where creative output can increase by 60% just by walking. And then fourth, learn to take breaks. We are often told in society that taking breaks can be a bad thing, that it can hinder us from our flow, and sometimes can even be excused as being lazy. But the truth of the matter is, taking breaks for the right amount of time, after a given amount of period, is actually more productive for you than not taking a break. Data suggests that the most productive workers engage in a 17-minute break on average after working for a concentrated 52 minutes. If you just take the right amount of time to disengage and refresh your mind, you can actually come back to your work with a clearer mind to get more done. The fact is, breaks make people more diligent, and I talk about this in another video. Then remain consistent daily. This one is not stranger to anybody, but practice makes perfect. Doing something day in and day out over and over again will inevitably improve that skill. Of course, it's important to be conscious of how to improve yourself each day you're doing it, but little by little, you'll improve. And it's not just the result in itself that will improve, but the processes as well. And then of course, know that creating isn't one-off incident. Unlike the movies, inspiration isn't a one-off moment. It's something you have to build and really embrace daily. Some days you're feeling it and some days you're not. But whatever the case, you still need to work on whatever you're doing and hope that whatever comes out of the day's worth of work will be worth something in the future. And then of course, balance spontaneity and structure. Now, none of what was mentioned in the video is to say that you should be so rigid and ignore any potential for spontaneity. Of course, there truly are those aha moments that do pass your way, but you should be more than welcome to embrace them when they come. So balancing the set structured framework and spontaneous breakthrough moments is key to making the most out of inspiration. Ultimately, waiting for inspiration is pointless. Sure, it can happen, but it won't happen all the time, and that's the point. To truly be creative, you need to be persistent and consistent. There is no way to avoid the hard work, and maintaining a fixed routine structure, as rigid and constrained as it may seem, can actually force you to develop a fluid rhythm that eventually fosters a flow of productivity and creativity. Learning to focus and concentrate is key in this endeavor, but daily grind is what makes the discipline to do it over and over again. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, inspiration and motivation are not found. That is a fallacy. These things, much like happiness, are made. But of course, it can be easy to get distracted in this day and age with all the temptations out there, and that's why it's important to learn to train your mind and delay gratification. So if you want to learn more about that, make sure to check out the video on the left, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel so I can continue to feed you nuggets of gold that boost brain and behavior.